and welcome to the April 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Tupelo Planning Committee. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones. At this time, we will rise and give the invocation by Bentley Nolan and the Pledge of Allegiance by Mark Williams.
You made an invocation though?
Yeah, invocation.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to gather here to make decisions that will have ramifications for our city. We thank you for the public engagement and the responsibility. We ask for your wisdom as we make these decisions, as we don't approach them lightly. In Jesus' name, amen.
Face the flag, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Tupelo Planning Committee is a volunteer group appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We receive no compensation for this, as we do it as a community service. We spend a lot of time on our own funds studying and researching the applications and visiting the sites that are on our agenda each month. We ask that you remember that we do not take our positions or any application lightly. Our decisions are based on facts as they are presented and with regard to the regulations set forth in the Development Code. At this time, I would like to ask the staff and committee members to introduce themselves, starting with the staff, and remember to speak into the microphone.
Jenny Safely, City Planner.
Mark Williams.
Pam Hadley.
Lindsay Leak.
Bentley Nolan.
Leslie Mart.
Victor Fleitas.
Eddie Thompson.
Scott Davis. Gus Hildenbrand.
Russ Wilson, Zoning Administrator.
Thank you. We'll move on to the review of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
I do have a comment during that, I seem to recall that Jenny had stated that the Chickasaw study was underway at that time, and I did not see it noted in the meeting minutes.
We will amend those and get those to you guys.
Are there any other comments?
I move that we approve with those corrections.
Second.
Motion by Scott Davis, second by Bentley Nolan. All approved. Please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Report on council actions. Do you have anything to report on the council actions from our last meeting?
Yes, the City Council on February 7th approved the Maplewood subdivision on Beamster that you all had approved at the January meeting. And then old business, the TA 2202 related to billboards and multifamily housing is still in legal review. And for new business, we have quite a few things of new business. First, we'll welcome Victor Fleitas from Ward 4. He's joining us on the committee. We're really glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Pam Hadley, who has been serving as our chair, will be rotating off, still serving on the committee, but handed the short straw to Lindsay Leak, who will be now serving as chair with Bentley Nolan as vice chair. So that will prime our order of succession as everyone moves off. And I think then Mark Williams will move up to vice chair when Bentley becomes chair.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Saylor. Moving on the agenda, we will the first item on the agenda will be Flex 2301, Lakefront Gardens. Is there anyone here to speak for that? Would the applicant please come to the podium, state your name and address, and present your case to the committee?
My name's Mark Summers. I'm here for a amendment to the site plan.
Mr. Summers approached us. He was approved for his site plan for a duplex development on South Veterans at 1030 South Veterans.
Yeah, sorry.
You're good. In 2020, and due to COVID and all kinds of other delays, he's now wanting to come to us again for an amendment to that site plan to add an additional duplex to that. So because of that, we'll need a couple of things. You guys are reviewing the major site plan amendment that adds the duplex and moves the landscaping buffer that was previously in front of a duplex on the northern side, adding the duplex and then moving that just farther to the west to still create a buffer with the road. Then we will also do a flexible use to permit duplex. You're in mixed-use commercial corridor zone here, and so the flexible use for duplexes has to be approved. Then in addition to that, there is a flexible variance required on this. It is 1.33 acres, and per code, that would allow 9.3 dwellings. And so already the committee has approved 12 dwellings on the 1.3 acres, and this would up the number of dwellings. Oh gosh, I have made that 16 in your packet, my apologies.
16 total.
16 total dwelling units, that's right, okay, I'm making sure I didn't write that in error, thank you for catching it. So that's a 58% variance on what is typically able to be approved without approval from the planning committee. So in anything over 30% requires planning committee approval. The staff is recommending approval on this. If you'll look at your site plan, the only thing that we discussed is that the southern properties, or the southern duplexes located there, have landscaping around them, and right now, we have landscaping on the eastern side of those, but nothing around the duplexes themselves. So just adding in some landscaping around the northern side residential units. So that will require essentially 3 votes from you all. Approval of the major site plan, approval of the flexible use, and approval of that flexible variance to allow the increase in number of dwelling units on the acreage.
Jenny, could I mention something?
Of course.
I think the flexible use in 2020 approved the duplexes for that. So
Yeah,
I think it's just the addition of the one unit is really all.
Yeah.
That was my read on it. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. How that read in the 2020 minutes, this is me being overzealous, is that read as an approval of the site plan, and I just want on record an approval of that flexible use pro forma.
Well, so the first item we need to discuss would be the major site.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we just enter into the discussion, and does the applicant have anything he'd like to add to that?
I do not.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can enter into discussion on the first item, the major site. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So I visited the site this weekend and took a look at what's going on, and I appreciate that you guys are finally getting underway. I know it's been tough. So I guess I should have done better in looking at the site plan originally. So you could see from the original drawings that we had approved that there's parking on one side of the drive, and the landscaping in front of that unit, of those units opposite the parking. There was also information originally that there had been a means of egress for the fire department. They're going to be hard pressed to get cars to get in and out of there because of how close the proximity of each of the units is to the drive. It is crazy small. There was in the original meeting minutes, which thankfully Russ had included, and I'm sorry I did not highlight it, but but from the original approval, there was a comment that there was a means for the fire department to turn around there. You go putting another unit in there, there's absolutely no way they're turning around.
So, if you will, on this, y'all aren't approving the construction plan. So, this is just the general site plan, but fire will ensure that before all of that is done, that the 96-foot turnaround is located on the property, and then it has to have 22 feet of entry and exit distance on that straight line.
From unit to unit, or from the edge of the parking to the next unit?
From the edge of the parking stall to the end of that parking aisle.
22 foot wide with more than 96 foot. It's closer. It's over 100 with the requirement is a 25-foot radius. I have closer to a 50.
Okay.
Where, is there any way we can pull up something that you show where that radius is after you put the proposed building on?
I submitted a site plan.
We've
look
got
at
that
that?
site plan in front of us. The dimensions are a little bit difficult to read in our printout. What we can do, Leslie, is we can send to you all when plan review looks at the construction application, that you guys get the update to confirm all of that.
I have a hard time thinking, well, maybe now is not the time to mention that until we get closed for just our discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is nothing in our packet right now that tells us how you're doing your turnaround, correct?
Other than a scaled drawing, correct?
Is it the turnaround that's related to
The fire
the eighth
lane.
unit, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, that hashed area is the fire line.
Where are the HVAC units going?
It's different for each building, north and east and west on most. The buildings next to the fire lane, those have to go on the south side.
So those, the HVAC units will be located in the back? Is there code that talks about the distance from edge of building to edge of building versus this drive?
Not versus the drive. Edge of building is 10 feet between structures.
And the drive doesn't matter? That 10 feet could be completely filled up with drive. Is that correct? Because that's what your intent is, right? Between these two buildings, it's going to be completely filled up with this turnaround.
Yes, so I'm going to have a 25-foot spacing between the building with the 25-foot fire lane, the 20-foot fire lane access in between them.
The 10-foot requirement is for fire code to, otherwise you'd have to have a firewall there. So the 10-foot is a building department requirement, and that's where in the MDR you have 5 feet on one side, 5 feet on the other, 10-foot minimum. We'd like to expand that, more for fire code access, but that's the reason for that. So you can landscape it, you can pave it, you can do whatever you want to, but it's just a 10-foot requirement so that if a building were to catch fire, it doesn't have as much of an opportunity of catching the next building on fire.
Okay. And have we been out there and we looked at the distance between some of the units?
Where the original site plan was approved in 2020 for 7 units, so only the additional ones is for review right now.
Yeah.
But the fire department, everyone in plan review, all departments looked at this and had no concerns with any that they.
Right.
The parking spaces, I think, may be a little shy, but what do we need for 16 units?
It met the code when we reviewed it. I believe that it's for 1 per bedroom, except when you get to 2-bedroom, I think it's 1.5 parking spaces. So for Are they all two-bedroom units?
I'm sorry?
Are they all two-bedroom units?
No, sir.
Two of them,
There's-
one bedroom.
I have 4 one-bedroom.
No, 4 one-bedroom?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd have to go back and look at that, but I know that the 7 units did meet the parking. Did you add any additional
I
parking?
did
for the
add some
8?
additional parking.
How many?
4 spots, 2 per 2-bedroom unit.
Okay, 4 additional parking spaces for the additional unit. Okay.
Who did this drawing for you, the site plan?
I did.
There'll be more cars there than that.
Yeah, well,
So I'm not completely confident in the site plan, how accurate the scale is for the parking spaces, the length of those parking spaces versus the drive, versus where our requirement for landscaping, do we have a requirement for landscaping in front of the units? Or is it just okay to have it all concrete?
So, you're asking a difficult question because on commercial, in a residential sort of setting, we do hold them to the commercial landscaping standards, which in this case, because we are requiring a flexible use and flexible variance approval, that's giving us a little bit of leeway to ask for additional landscaping. Typically, you would not ask for amendments to the previously approved portion of the site plan. We would only be working with the addition to the site plan. So on this, we can't ask for some additional landscaping on what is, I misspoke earlier, those are the southern units there that was the side the new duplex is on.
I mean, the front street side, on the veteran side, it looks wonderful.
Yeah.
It looks fabulous. The moment you drive in there, it just, not happy.
Yeah, and we can improve those landscaping standards in construction.
When the initial plan was approved, it was understood that I just drew a landscape plan for the first 2 buildings.
Okay.
That's a typical
Oh, and that'll be
landscape plan.
reflected in reverse on the other side?
That whole thing's landscaped, yeah.
Okay.
With excess trees. Yeah.
Okay.
Only at street side, nothing that's going to be in front of those buildings?
Yes, I've got a landscape buffer in front of the buildings, small on 2 of them, and then a 3-foot landscape area on the middle building.
Which makes the parking in the drive even more of a challenge.
It's a 19-foot parking spot with a 21-foot drive.
But all those landscaping standards and drive aisle standards will be upheld in construction review.
How many parking spaces total? Looking at the drawing, I counted 25.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. I would have to look at it, but I think so.
During the initial project, didn't we talk about, and I'm, again, sorry I didn't mark it, didn't we talk about that you were providing like a green place where there would be like some kind of play area or something for
Yep.
a garden area for that? Where are you intending for that to be?
That is west of the southwestmost building.
So next to the road?
Yeah, there's a 25-foot by 70-foot area there. I'm going to install a garden.
Oh, is that rectangle there then sort of your planter
Yeah.
area? Okay.
I don't have any other questions for him.
Any other questions from the committee at this time? Do we have a motion for the major site?
Don't we have to discuss it now? We close the public portion?
Close public, okay, all right, public portion is closed. All right, now we'll go into discussion.
I would make a motion.
No, now we can talk about it. Did anybody else go out there and see the proximities? So Jenny, I am crazy concerned that we have straight-in parking, because obviously you can't drive around, so it's straight-in parking. If somebody backs up, they're going to back up into the house, especially if there's even more landscape buffers. There needs to be landscape buffers because it's going to look like a concrete little jungle. So there's my concern on that. The size of the drive versus the parking, there's my concern with that. The spacing between the buildings, and I did not take my tape measure, it was muddy, so I didn't get out and actually measure between buildings. But the building that is located on the northwest building versus the building right next to it, which is that kind of odd shape. It's not a rectangle, it's that kind of chunk. There's an HVAC unit that's right there next to it, and so from the HVAC unit to the sidewall, there's, I don't know, 5 feet, 4 feet. So the 10-foot that's required between buildings, where does that start at?
It starts at the structure. That HVAC unit won't be included in that. I mean, the edge of that is not where that would start. It would be at the exterior finish.
It's like it's okay for the air conditioner to burn, but not the other building. It's kind of
Well, the only problem is we did approve everything but this last thing before, and that.
Right, and you are just approving a preliminary site plan. Remember, all the dimensions will get caught in the...
So if this is approved, and then you sit down, and then the fire department says, we can't get a truck in there.
If they have to amend, we'll be back here.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
That's right.
This did go before plan review.
Yeah, it went before plan review as the preliminary site plan, but again, construction,
Yeah, so
but if there has to be an amendment to the site plan, we'll come back here.
So that can be corrected.
Correct.
So which comes first, the chicken or the egg here? Is it that they get things correct?
This is sort of the broad.
That's right.
You like this, and then once this is approved, we've dealt with this before, you're going to get down to the details.
That's right.
I think the point is, and we've done this before, you don't want to spend all the time to get very detailed and then present and say no.
Right.
And then you've wasted all this time. So just get the big picture.
Right, which is why this is a preliminary, effectively.
That's the point of the major site plan, the big picture.
Right. That's right.
Anybody that has a four-door pickup with a long bed on it won't be able to turn in.
I agree. That will be tough, and that's I'm wondering, is it set up for a little Jeep or a little Prius, or is it you park up?
I mean, the parking aisle regulations and the parking stall regulations are the same across the board, so it'll catch.
So and there's places in town, some are easier to get into than others,
right.
But as long as it meets the code or whatever the guidelines are, that's all, it may not look like it does, but you sign off on it saying this is legal, that's...
Well, without the building there, without that additional building, they have an opportunity to change the parking to be a little more angled, and then when they back out, they would actually move forward and kind of use that as a turnaround loop. You take that building away, you're backing up all the way down to get in front of that building that's on the northwest side, right before you exit out. I mean, it's a crazy tight. It's crazy, crazy tight.
Sorry. We'll have you specifically sit down with the fire department for access, and we'll confirm all of that.
Any other further discussion? Is anyone ready to make a motion?
Wait a minute, I think Victor has a question.
Just point of clarification, then. What we're approving then is the preliminary, the addition from 7 to 8 with this preliminary site plan, with a firm understanding that the ultimate approval will be with the city, with the fire department, that the concerns that Ms. Mart is raising here are going to have to be addressed within the ambit of the city code before the final construction can take place.
Correct, yeah.
And assuming that those concerns are met or satisfied, it comes back to us, or it does not.
It will not come back to us
It only
if
comes
their
back-
concerns are satisfied. If building and fire and utilities approve this having met code when the construction plans are submitted, then it won't come back here. But if there are amendments to the site plan based on their need for modifications, it would come back here.
Now, the construction applications have already been submitted for the 7 units that were approved in 2020. That site plan was approved. So the only thing that will come back is
For the additional.
for the additional number 8.
That's right.
And all the committee, all the department heads, everyone in plan review on Thursday morning looked at this and are ready to, are ready to sign off on it.
So they had no, I'm sorry.
With that said, since you're only going to be looking at the one, since the other 7 are done and all that parking was done, when it goes to the city for this one though, but will we look at it in totality or just the one?
No, just the one. That's the only thing that is on the
So then potentially
agenda.
that doesn't alleviate Leslie's
That's right.
concerns.
Yeah, I mean, all of the site plan was approved in 2020, and the applicant waited because of the pandemic, and then came in and submitted construction plans, and was already working on those, getting those done. And then number 8 is ready to go, and I think it's got a work crew probably that's been working on the stuff framing right now that's ready to go. As a matter of fact, we were asking if this could go then to the planning committee tomorrow. I asked Tanner if...
To council.
That's right, to the city council tomorrow if this is approved, so they can go ahead instead of having to wait another month for approval on that while he's got the framing crew here. It's hard to get.
He hasn't done the site work down there yet, so.
So Russ, again, I'm trying to understand, I understand the first were done, but now we're going to add an 8th, and so the fire would not, the fire would have to look at the totality of the property.
They will.
Right, and they did.
To be able to understand, can they turn around, not just the one?
Yeah, and with the addition of the 8th, if it creates some issue of doing that, they would. But as far as the parking spaces and the layout and the general stuff, of whether they're straight or angled or anything like that, all that had already been approved in the original site plan for what was there for 7 units. And they're just asking to add the unit. But if they had to change, something substantially in order to do that, it would have to be looked at.
But you just said that they had already looked at this, they had already looked at the permit last week, and they had no issues here on this site. Is that correct?
We have plan review because he's got to see whether it's worthwhile to do it or if he's going to have to do anything else first before he comes to the planning committee. And that's what this same plan that you've got here is what went before plan review. And I don't know if, Mark, were you in the meeting there before plan review? I think we just brought it in and said they're adding 1 unit, and here are the changes on it that they're proposing.
Yeah.
And
Of course, I think that's the reason that additional unit is further south to give more turn room, right?
Yes, I have it pushed back enough, and I have the parking on that unit further east to just ensure a larger radius than is actually required.
But the process is, and he's not going to present this, until he gets approval from the planning committee to do it. So if the planning committee does approve this, then it does go to plan review for construction, a pre-construction plan review.
And
Because
they
you could-
will
you could have-
review the additions in conjunction with the whole that's already been approved to make sure that there's not any conflict
Yeah.
with code. And we can specify, additional review related to ingress, egress, and parking.
So in essence, the scope of our assignment tonight is just to give it the go-ahead so they can start looking at the other things that we need to look at. Okay.
It's one of those situations where, which comes first, the chicken or the cart? Because when I look at this, I have a hard time, I appreciate what you are trying to do, and affordable housing is absolutely something that we need to provide, but we need to provide quality affordable housing. Just putting people in these little places that just don't have anything, where the cars are literally up against the building, the drives, I mean, it does not.
I mean, that is why our base code would not permit this number of dwelling units in the 50. I mean, y'all are approving or reviewing for a 58% variance on that, on number of dwelling units, which is, determination about what the trade-off is, really, and the compatibility and conformity with the neighborhood and what is needed, versus kind of the concerns you're talking about on the 1.3 acres.
Yeah, so from my perspective, maybe I didn't look at it well enough on the first time, but I don't have to make the same mistake the second time. That's just my comment.
Well, I move we approve it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Gus Hillenbrand, Patty Thompson on the second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-4, 1 against. The second, what we need to address will be the flexible use.
I think she needs to instruct him on what to do next.
Yeah, the flexible use approval for duplexes in the mixed-use commercial.
Sorry, Lindsay.
So we'll we'll have discussion on flexible use. Is there any discussion on flexible use?
I don't understand. Help me understand what we're doing.
There was three parts.
Three things on Lakeside. Okay, what's the second
This
part?
is the flexible use for duplexes as a use to allow duplexes.
But didn't we already do that? Didn't we already
So
approve that?
on the 2020, it was approved as a major site plan, which technically approves the duplexes as being part of the site plan, but I do want it on record that flexible use has been approved for duplexes themselves.
Okay. So I make a motion that we approve duplexes for use on this site.
I second.
Motion by Leslie Martin, second Pam Hadley. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All approved. And the third item on this would be the flexible variance.
Which means, I'm sorry, I'm so
The
confused.
variance is to increase from what would base code allow the 9.3 dwelling units on this acreage to the 16.
So this is where I really need to be no. Okay, I'm with you now.
All right, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Mark Williams, second by Scott Davis. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like that.
Opposed?
Motion passes. Let's see, now you tell me what he does
All right,
next.
so next steps on this, Mr. Summers. This motion is a recommendation to City Council. City Council has it on the agenda to move up for tomorrow, and they'll vote then. We'll send you an approval letter from the Planning Committee. If anyone appeals, they have 3 days to appeal that decision. Thank you, guys. All right, next on the agenda is flexible use 2302. Sorry, Lindsay.
No, that's fine.
I was just rolling
We'll keep
right
this
on
thing
down.
moving, that's right. Is the applicant here for the Cove, Reagan Cove fence?
Yes, sir.
If you please come to the podium and state your name and address and state your case.
I'm Melvin Orr, and I own the property at 2215 Reagan Cove. And I've had an existing fence that serves, there's a pool in the backyard. And I had a couple Fridays ago, some of the posts have been broken, and I'm looking at having the fence redone. But people I've been talking to, said I need to get with y'all on the code, because apparently I've got 2 front yards, I found. The fence as it is now on the Nixon side is just 8 feet off of Nixon. I would like to pull it back another 16 feet, but retain the 6-foot fence height, because I've got a wrought iron gate that's adjacent to the house that is really nice. So if I go with the standard of just 4 feet, that would have very little privacy for the pool area, and then we just have to deal with that nice gate. So I think, do y'all have the plans or the drawing on there?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I didn't see it. Is there a drawing that shows where you're actually going to be putting the new fence? I didn't see that in the packet.
I didn't include that in there. It's just kind of the same length on the fence. It's just 16 feet back of there.
Going from 8 foot, adding another 16, so about 24 feet.
From the curb.
From the curb.
So I saw that the backside, I guess it would be on the east side, that your neighbor behind you is doing something with that? Or, so would you shorten it up as well? Or would it stay?
That side between the neighbors, I want to go with the 8 foot. The lady I bought the house from had really a nice privacy barrier of those shrubs that have grown quite tall, and the beetles or something's gotten into them, so they've died. So to provide adequate privacy for both of us, I want to replace that with an 8 foot.
And
Just replacing
8
it.
feet is within code.
Just replacing it with exactly what it already looks like, only not falling down.
And moving it back from the road more.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be shorter on that back neighbor.
No, on the back neighbor,
I don't mean shorter height-wise, I mean shorter
Yes.
from the Nixon side in.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Orr? Thank you, Mr. Orr.
The tornado didn't take your fence down, though.
No, at the very top of Nixon, they took the roof off of one of those houses.
Yeah.
Since notifications were sent out, is anyone here to speak for or against the application?
I did have one call from someone in the area that thought they were getting jury duty. But 59 letters went out and really only one call asking for clarification.
Thank you, Red. That closes the public portion of this application. We are now open for committee discussion.
Sure, I can walk through what exactly y'all will be voting on here. So this is just a change to a non-conforming use, and that it's only non-conforming because it is higher than the 4 foot that's permitted in a front yard, and because he has a corner lot, he has 2 sides that are considered front yards, has a 6 foot high fence there now, maintaining the 6 foot high fence, really just replacing it on the western side, and on the southern side, bringing it in 16 feet away from the curb. So are just voting on to allow the change.
Lindsay, I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mark Williams, a second by Bentley Nolan. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous. Jeannie, if you tell the applicant what their next steps will be?
Yeah, you will get an approval letter, so your next step will to build your fence, essentially. We'll get you the permit from our office, and when you pick up that permit, we'll send you the approval letter, it'll process through our office, and they'll let you know when you can pick up the permit, and then you'll be approved for your fence.
And you can just give me a call and we'll work out that. We can use this as the site plan, what I've got here. And then I'll do the approval letter and include it with that. So whenever you get ready to apply for the fence permit, we'll just formalize that.
Okay, so is that something towards the end of the week or something?
Just whenever you get ready, just call me and I'll be glad to, I can have most of it ready for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and there's no charge for it, it's just going over the stuff, it's just a formality of doing that. The only reason we have a fence permit is to tell you what I've already told you now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oil. Moving on to Flex 2301, Tupelo Furniture Mart. Is the applicant here today? If you'd please come to the podium, state your name and address, and present your case.
It's Adam Cleveland, 1879 North Coley Road, Tupelo. And we are wanting to add LED reader boards to a pre-existing, I think it's a non-conforming sign at this point because it was built 100 years ago. So it's a little larger than what is the new standard.
There you go.
Is there any residences close by? I didn't see any.
Buffalo Park's across.
Airport. This is the other building, not the Tupelo complex. It's by the Buffalo Park. This is the one down by Snap Fitness. It's the one
Where the
across
marathon.
street's all airport.
And you're at a corner
I know.
Chesterville and
Yes.
right there.
Right.
So
I know exactly where it is.
It is on the far western side, and they've got a buffer to the residential. It wouldn't be able to be seen from there.
There were 6 letters that went out to property owners within 500 feet of the sign.
And explain again, so you're only taking part of the sign to electrify it?
Right, yeah, we're going to put a reader board, pretty much what we're looking at is the section where it has the vinyls on there now that are showing their age. We're wanting to replace those with the digital sign.
So like where it says Anchor Church, Sanctuary, those like bottom 6 panes, is that what you're thinking?
Well, no, this is, and we haven't traded with the sign company to do it. What all the proposal was, we got.
Yeah, there's a rendering in your packet of the thing with the LQ at the top.
Oh, so it's the
Just
top
that
one.
larger block.
It's the top
just
part
that
that
top.
becomes electrified.
Well, yeah, it's half of that top section, Leslie. The LQ is portion of it, and then the remainder there where it says get your flu shot here, that's actually the only portion that is the electronic.
Is LQ electrified?
No.
So you're saying that the black section is going to be cut in half horizontally?
Correct.
Okay, now that makes sense. I just got confused in looking at it.
The electrified portion will be 65 inches tall?
Yes.
Okay.
For what
Yeah, based on the drawing.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I think this half is
65
and this half
inches
is-
by 17 feet.
Okay.
And they're putting up when I say a Cadillac of digital signs, it's a Watchfire. It's just a first class, high resolution, has every kind of control setting that can be done on it. It's a very adaptable type board.
And you're planning to put landscaping at the bottom of it?
Yes, yeah, we've got to add some landscaping there for that and redo some of that. Someone's bad idea of how to set it up for potted plants around it at the bottom.
So, Adam, with that said, I'm familiar with that area, so obviously what that white planter is, inside that white planter's got a hard surface on it, so would you be breaking that out to do the planter, or is the planter going to be more on the ground and go up?
Right, yeah, it's going to be, because we do have an island around it that is a dirt or grass area that we can do some landscaping there, and we're going to have to do something with that planter to landscape it, because it was originally designed for during shows for them to take potted plants out there and sit them around the sign. It was never designed, that's why it's got a hard bottom in it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Somebody thought that was a good idea in the 80s.
So you guys are looking at, just our previous, this is just a flexible use approval to change a non-conforming sign, and the code allows for the changing into electronic graphic display on non-conforming signs.
This may be a dumb question. Was any kind of airport approval required or
That's a
FAA
good
implicated in
question,
any way?
But not required anything in the airport area. I think once you get past 100 or 200 feet or something, but it's currently right at 30 feet, which is the general height allowed for a multi-tenant sign with more than 2 to 3 tenants on it.
And we're recommending, in addition to the landscaping, that the lighting be 4,000 Kelvin or less, which is how lighting temperature is measured to change from warm to cool. And that cool is sort of the brightness that sort of burns your retinas, so keeping it below that 4,000.
Well, it'll be warm lighting, or right on the edge of the warm lighting. That's what it is.
Right.
And I did talk to the sign guy, and he said that's what he told me, that this thing's got every setting in the world. So, whatever general terms you give or whatever, we can, or if you want to be specific on the.
Yeah, the other general inclusion in that might be that a dimmer be used for day to night.
Yeah, he said it does.
It actually, you can set the power output, which is the brightness, you can set it by time of day. You can actually have it where it tones back at night, because you need it bright during the day in the sunlight.
Right.
And then you tone it back at night, because we've run into that on signs before that didn't have that adjustment, that if you get it where you can see it during the day, then it knocks your eyes out at night and consumes a little more power.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, not much. It's probably LED anyway.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Cleveland? Thank you, Mr. Cleveland.
Thank you.
Russ, you said some letters went out. Any response?
In there were 5 letters that went out, and no questions asked on it.
That'll close the public portion. We're now open for committee discussion.
And having bright lights near the airport is not any problem, I guess. But you got that whole.
As a matter of fact, a letter did go out to Tupelo Airport Authority. We normally don't send letters out to Tupelo government agencies, but in this case, since the airport would have been a relevant one, it did go out to them.
So I'll make a motion, we approve it.
A second.
Motion by Patty Thompson and second Pam Hadley. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion's unanimous. Gina, would you like to advise him?
Yes, well, this is a final decision unless there's an appeal. There's 3 days for appeal, but we'll get you an approval letter and get all your construction. Thank you, Adam. Yeah.
And I think, Adam, Chris with Econo Science has, I think, I have to have a sign application on that also, which he's aware of that, I think, in the works.
Can I make sure, I'm so sorry, I'm Adam, but y'all approve that, are we approving with the landscaping and the 4,000 Kelvin?
Yes.
That's assumed.
Yes, with the dimmer.
Okay, I just wanted, with the dimmer, okay, I wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Moving on to Flex 2302. Is the applicant here? If you'd please come to the podium, state your name and address, and present your case.
My name is Josh Robertson. I'm asking for a variance on a zoning frontage requirement for a small subdivision on McCullough Boulevard. There's 2 lots. It was originally started out as one project, and there's 2 buildings on the block of land, 1 acre block of land, and the person that wanted one of the buildings wanted to actually own the building. So we divided the lot in half. So by doing that, it actually made a small portion frontage on one of the lots on the boulevard there. And the access actually isn't off of McCullough Boulevard for any other development. And I think the requirement for the frontage is kind of related to the access to begin with. And the access is off of a drive to the side. It's an easement across there for the two lots. And MDOT kind of dictated for us not to be able to have access directly on McCullough Boulevard because they considered this block of land part of a larger development. This whole area is about 6 acres, what Storage City is on now, and then this block of land, they considered one development, and they wanted one access point off of McCullough for that entire development. So that's where our access point is off of the drive that Storage City currently uses now.
So the drive that you guys will now be accessing that will come onto McCullough, who owns that drive?
It's owned by Storage City, but we have a easement on it, irrevocable easement.
Irrevocable, that was my question.
Okay.
He's the attorney, so he
No,
would
it's
know.
both perpetual or a
that's right.
irrevocable easement. All right.
Okay, that was my question. That's what I was trying to get at. Thank you, Victor. You're welcome.
Kind of a technicality in a way because of the way frontage is defined as being on a street. This is not on a dedicated street, but it does have frontage on the drive that you have.
Right.
So on this, you all are looking at a flexible variance of 75.5%, which is, we see no problem with. There's a shared parking agreement here. There's access from the western side along that perpetual easement. And there's actually a utility easement that runs right with how those lots have been subdivided. And so there wouldn't be an issue, we don't believe, in any future land use with the sale of these lots.
Yeah, we have lots of easements detailed out for different utilities, for the parking, for everything, and that's all attached to the deed for the lots. So that, if the lots were ever sold to someone else, it would go along with the deed, so it shouldn't be an issue in the future,
What is your intent for the use of the buildings?
The northernmost building is owned by Tracy Loden. It's CrossFit Tupelo. And the southern building is pronounced, it's going to be a shell building, probably a multi-tenant space.
Office.
This business use, offices or something of that nature.
Have you already had initial plan review with the city in regard to the parking?
Yes.
And we're sufficient for parking?
We're sufficient for it was only checked for square footage and on average, but there's plenty for the gym, CrossFit, and then the other that is left will be based upon, the use that is applied there. If it were an office, it might only be 1 per 400 square feet, parking, but if it were a restaurant, it might be anywhere from 1 per 100 to 1 per, and I don't think they have a restaurant, I don't think they have enough square footage for that, but.
Yeah, there's no plan.
There's adequate shared parking for reasonably expected uses in MUCC.
Okay, so no churches, you won't have enough parking for churches?
No.
Okay, so as long as you are fully aware that there is limitations on what can be done with that shell space?
Right, yeah, we're aware of that.
Okay.
And they've already gone through land development process with us and have an approved landscaping plan that's included in your packet with that.
She knew I was going to ask about the landscaping.
They did a beautiful job. They did a very graceful job. They're adding a lot along that easement.
Now, if we just had sidewalks, but, I can't push my luck. Not going to get sidewalks out there.
That spot.
15 letters that went out to property owners within 500 feet. I did have one person call and ask if they were going to build apartments.
Yeah, Not a good thing.
Yeah, and then, but it was not, I explained that to her, and then another business owner there wanted to know if there was anything they should be concerned with. They just weren't sure what they were doing.
So does this property, there was a house, and I'm sorry, I did not go visit the property, this particular piece of property, but on Google Maps, there is or was a house. Is that taking this away, or is that house the one that's directly on the east side?
There is a house on the east side between this lot and Busy Lad, and that's not our piece of property, that's someone else's.
Okay, so they had no...
I did have somebody that called about that piece of property that got the letter. I think that now that I think about it, that was asking about that. They were wanting to know if they could renovate that house. And the house is in bad shape, so the replacement cost of that would exceed 50% of the assessed value, so it would have to be demolished before they could use it as a residence. So, at some point, that other stuff's going to probably develop commercially anyway, but you're right that...
Okay. What about the landscaping buffer between property lines? What has to happen there? Or what's going to happen there?
Between the parking lot, so there's a shared parking lot.
No, on the...
Right there. On the eastern
Because
side.
it's
On
cut
this-
through the middle of the pole, I got it.
Between the house property and this property, what's happening at that property line?
I think it's zoned the same thing.
Yeah, and because it's not currently being used residential, we don't have that requirement, but because the property is not habitable, we couldn't require that. There are trees on the northeastern side that were left as part of tree protection. And so they have some there, but not at the northern part of the
There is residential back behind there, isn't there, Jenny, I think?
property. Way far back there, yeah, like not adjacent to this, though.
Because I'm looking at the plat or whatever, it says parcel number and then storage city of Tupelo for those three that are located on the north side of that property. Is that right?
Yeah, Storage City does own property surrounding that. They own the whole parcel and I think subdivided or sold this.
Yeah, they have the whole north side of this lot is adjacent to Storage City. I think that's a parking area, just a gravel lot.
Can we make certain that we require the trees and landscaping buffer be maintained between, so if that's north, south, that would be east? Thank you.
That was already approved as part of their land development permit, so they have cleared the property with what has been approved to be cleared, and there is some tree protection that they have out there, but otherwise, we could not go in reverse. There really wasn't anything on that northeastern.
Okay, it just looks...
Southeastern buffer, sorry.
It just looks like that property, from the back of the building to the property line is super small. But I can't zoom in. I keep fighting the urge to, make my drawing get bigger. What is that distance?
Back of the building to the property line, and then that would have to meet the setback.
I think it's a 10-foot requirement setback, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
And is that, Jenny, is that typical for, I'm sorry, I'll ask that when we close and get to you.
Any other questions for Mr. Robertson? Thank you, Mr. Robertson. We'll now open for committee discussion.
So, Jenny, the question was the 10-foot that is in the back of the shell building from the property line, is that what meets code, or is that supposed to be 20?
Commercial, yes. I'll relay that to Russ. He checks the setbacks on all this. But yes, that is typical.
So when is it 20 foot?
Well, I don't have my code with me, but that's, I believe that area is mixed-use commercial corridor.
It is.
The setbacks on that are 30 feet from the front, and I believe it's either 10 or 20. I think it's only 10 feet.
Yeah, it's 10 feet, and they have a floor area ratio where essentially they can take up the entire.
Okay.
I think, a 1.5 floor area ratio there.
But usually when they do that, Leslie, they'll go ahead and clear stuff out and then landscape it back and meet the landscaping requirements. And a lot of that that's back there may just be scrub stuff that's not, really no protected stuff. They would have done that with the tree survey during the land development portion of it, and they did that. But there's no buffer requirement between commercial to commercial, just when it changes to another zone, but there is a landscape requirement for the lot as developed. And then a land development permit, if they're just clearing it so that people can see the property and see what it looks like. They have to make sure they don't cut down protected species and then replace them somewhere else in the city through the payment through the pre-farm.
I have no further questions.
Do we have a motion?
I will move to approve that variance.
Second.
Bentley Nolan with the motion, Pam Hadley with the second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All approved. Jeannie, can you tell the applicant what their next steps will be?
Yes, there's a 3-day appeal process. We'll put you an approval letter for that, and then your next step will be, I think you've already got construction plans in, so we'll just move right on through with that. You're approved for the lot though, so your minor subdivision can be recorded. Thank you, sir.
Do we have something for the next work session?
Yes, we have a rezoning and flexible use and compatible use possibly approval, just the one.
Just the rezoning.
Just the rezoning of a parcel on South Veterans. It's a split zone, or a split zoned lot. And so they're wanting to have it all be in the mixed use commercial. Half of it is in mixed density residential on South Veterans. And so being developed out possibly as a assisted living type of facility.
And it's just a correction of the map. When they did some of these zones with lots, they just drew an arbitrary line down there to make it even, and it happened to split a lot that should be commercial that has frontage off a veteran. So it didn't feel like they should have to pay $200 to just because somebody drew a line in the wrong place. So the city's initiating that and has to go through a public notice and stuff. So it's just a map correction. And
We've done several of those.
Yeah.
So work session then on...
Our work session will be Monday, April 24th, and the regularly scheduled meeting will be Monday, May 1st.
May Day.
May Day.
May Day, that's right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.
We'll have to save it till next week.